An amazing new waitress exposes the arrogant millionaire, transforming his life in a touching way. Sarah stood behind the counter, her mind racing with thoughts of her grandmother and the growing list of bills that needed attention. At 25, her youth felt like a distant memory, swallowed by the weight of responsibility. The diner bustled with an air of entitlement, rich patrons chatting loudly about their extravagant lives while she wiped down tables and served steaming mugs of coffee. Every clink of a wine glass reminded her of the world she was excluded from, and it pierced her with a familiar ache. Just yesterday, her grandmother had asked about the latest doctor's visit, and Sarah had struggled to suppress her unease. "I'll figure it out," she had promised, but every night ended with a twinge of doubt. That morning, turbulence awaited. Mark, the brash billionaire whose reputation preceded him, sat at a corner booth, exuding arrogance in waves. His demands were as flashy as his tailored suit, and as Sarah approached with a strained smile, she felt her stomach twist. Would today be the day he mistook politeness for weakness? "Coffee, black. And I expect no mistakes," he declared, the impatience in his voice slicing through the diner chatter. Faint murmurs around them heightened her tension, everyone listened, and for a moment, the world dimmed. She hesitated, suppressing the urge to roll her eyes at the ridiculous expectations of someone like him. The tight knot in her chest expanded, inhaling her confidence. Was he really so blind to her struggles, the humanity behind her apron? "Right away, sir," she managed, breathing deeply as she turned back to the coffee machine, every movement a testament to the determination coursing through her. But as she poured, a conflicting mix of resentment bubbled. Why should she bear the weight of his arrogance? She wrestled with an impulse to confront him, to remind him that behind his wealth lay an entire world of unseen souls, tethered to hardship. Before she could lose her nerve, she walked back to his table, sliding the steaming mug toward him. "You know, not everyone has the luxury of being served," Sarah replied, keeping her voice steady, her heartbeat resounding in her ears. "Some of us are just trying to make it, day by day." He froze, surprise flickering across his face as if someone had finally pierced the bubble he lived in. Mark's bravado faltered for a split second, the veneer of his entitlement cracking to reveal something deeper. She couldn't help but feel a twist of satisfaction, but also fear. What had she just awakened in him? "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Sarah returned to her tasks, the weight of their interaction lingering in the air between them. With every cup she served, she felt a subtle shift. Mark's arrogance had been challenged, yet his silence hinted at a struggle she couldn't quite fathom. Would he retreat behind his wall of privilege, or could he truly reflect on the words she had thrown at him? As lunchtime buzzed around them, the stakes escalated, and Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that Mark's world was about to unravel. He seemed lost, a flicker of vulnerability breaking through with each moment he sat there, contemplating her challenge. The space between them thrummed with possibility, if only he had the courage to face the truth she had unveiled. Time hung like an unanswered question, thick and suffocating. Would he recognize the value of humility, or would he be defeated by yet another crisis, retreating into his comfortable cage? Sarah glanced at him, an unspoken understanding hanging in the air, as her heart raced with anticipation. This was just the beginning. Sarah kept her focus on the diner, moving among the tables efficiently, but her mind was tethered to the profound moment with Mark. She felt exhilarated and terrified. She had crossed a line many might deem unwise, but it stirred a flicker of something deeper within her, a burgeoning sense of empowerment. Every cup she refilled and every plate she cleared only deepened her realization that she had to confront her circumstances rather than simply endure them. The weight of her grandmother's fragility loomed heavy, compelling her to ask herself, what kind of life was she crafting? Were her days to be filled only with the sameness of serving, or could she unearth her own ambitions, as she wiped down the countertop, she couldn't help but glance at Mark. His demeanor seemed different now, less condescending, almost thoughtful. In that moment, she questioned if her words had sparked a realization in him or if he would dismiss their significance as he returned to his luxury-laden life. She observed him clutching his coffee, fingers wrapped tightly around the ceramic mug, as though it were a lifeline to something he had nearly forgotten, human connection. Sarah leaned against the counter, feeling an unfamiliar comfort in the role she had blazed for herself. Here she was, a waitress asserting her voice against a billionaire who had likely never experienced such directness in a service environment. A sudden swell of courage overcame her, pushing her to ponder a truth about her own identity, one that had been muted by struggles for too long. "Excuse me," she heard a familiar voice call. It was Jenna, another waitress, a single mother juggling responsibilities and her own dreams of returning to school. "You okay? You seemed different with him." That simple question ignited a rush. "I'm tired of being invisible," Sarah admitted, startling herself with her candor. "Sometimes I wish I could help people see beyond their own world. I don't want to just be another face behind the counter." Jenna nodded, her eyes widening with understanding. "You're stronger than you think. You just opened a door, Sarah. What if you stepped through it?" The notion hit Sarah hard. Could she step into a broader life instead of merely surviving? The diner wasn't just a place to pay bills, it could be the first chapter of her story if only she dared to embrace change. With each passing moment, Mark captured her attention anew as he appeared more vulnerable. Their brief engagement had reached beyond mere confrontations. Was he contemplating his own journey too? She had no way of knowing, but it made her reconsider any preconceived notions about people like him. The lunch rush dwindled, and the realization struck Sarah: she had the power to choose her narrative, to write about her aspirations instead of only her hardships. Late-night studying online courses could become her routine if she seized the chance. Yet, doubts began to creep in. What if she failed, overwhelmed by the weight of ambition? What if Mark's change was superficial and he returned to his former self? The prospect of risk gnawed at her. Determined, Sarah resolved to speak with Mark again, coaxing him to see a different life. Whether it would help him mattered little compared to the clarity it would provide her. As she wiped down the last table, she noticed Mark rising, his gaze locking onto hers. No longer was he just an arrogant billionaire, he was a man grappling with his own darkness. The moment hung thick with unspoken potential. "Sarah," he said, a tone of sincerity weaving through his words. "We need to talk." The invitation startled her. Could this mark the start of a profound change? With her heart racing, she took a breath, stepping into the unknown. Decisions loomed. Her own life was ready for transformation if only she dared to embrace it. The conversation ahead could unravel either a new path or cement burdens, but the choice before her was clear. Now she would have to decide, was this her moment of reckoning, or merely the illusion of a fleeting chance? Each step closer to Mark ignited a myriad of questions. How would they resonate with one another? Would they share their burdens, or would she face panic as she delved deeper into his world? As Sarah approached Mark, her heart surged with adrenaline and anxiety. No longer was she merely a waitress serving coffee, she was an architect of her own destiny, a role she had never envisioned for herself. His piercing gaze bore into hers, urging her to bridge the chasm between their worlds. "Can we talk?" She nodded, surprised at the steadiness in her voice. They found a quieter corner of the diner, the hum of conversation fading into a backdrop. A sense of gravity enveloped them. This wasn't just a conversation about coffee or customer service. This was an opportunity to unravel the threads of their lives. A soft clinking of cutlery punctuated the silence as Sarah settled onto the stool across from Mark. The familiar aroma of brewed coffee wafted around them, a stark reminder of where they were, yet the stakes felt monumental. "What did you want to talk about?" she asked, her voice softer than intended. Mark ran his fingers through his hair, a habit Sarah recognized as a sign of vulnerability. "I've been thinking about what you said earlier. About being seen," he confessed, leaning forward slightly. His eyes reflected a depth she had not anticipated. I rarely consider how my actions affect others. It's always just been about business. Her instincts kicked in. This was a chance to forge something meaningful. For years, Sarah had felt like a lonely silhouette in a vibrant world. Now, here was someone seemingly willing to confront that weight of existence. What if you tried to break that cycle? She offered, her voice gaining strength. What happens when the world of wealth and privilege only serves itself? You could inspire change, Mark. His expression shifted, a mingling of skepticism and curiosity. And why would it matter to me? I'm just one person. You have influence, she pressed, emboldened by his openness. You've built an empire. But what if you used that power to uplift others, not just yourself? For a moment, silence thickened the air, and Sarah felt the pulse of possibility. What if you found a cause? She ventured. Something meaningful, something that matters. Mark's brow furrowed as he grappled with the thought. You talk about ambition like it's a choice. For me, it's just survival. The more I gain, the more I lose. Exactly, Sarah responded, her passion igniting as they locked eyes. That's why you're stuck. Living for yourself deprives you of seeing the real world. You're more than just a figure on a balance sheet, Mark. You could forge connections that transform lives. In that moment, Mark appeared lost in contemplation. She could almost see the wheels turning in his mind. It was a radical idea, upset the routine he had built. What would it mean to ignite change? Could it redefine his purpose? But doubt crept in once again, twisting her stomach. Don't you see? This isn't just about you. It's about stepping beyond your own fears. Like you're doing. He countered, a hint of challenge in his tone. Exactly, Sarah replied, her determination igniting even more. I'm tired of being a ghost in my own life. It's time to create something meaningful. If I can confront my own limitations, why can't you? His gaze softened, a flicker of doubt surfacing. You really think I could make a difference? Yes, she asserted, her voice rising with conviction. But it starts with acknowledging your own fears. You have to confront what's holding you back. Just then, the bell above the diner's door jingled, breaking the weight of their encounter. She realized the world outside hadn't stopped for them. Yet within these moments, change had begun to pulse between them. As they both wrestled with the gravity of their paths, a new wave of determination washed over Sarah. This wasn't just an exchange of ideas, it felt like a call to action. Let's leverage your success to fight for other stories, she proposed, tapping into an unexplored territory within herself. Together, we could create something powerful. Mark's expression brightened, curiosity lighting his features as he considered her words. The potential felt almost electric, yet uncertainty remained. Would they bridge the gap, or would this be another fleeting moment? Their conversation could herald a shift, but it hinged on their willingness to act, to risk everything for the sake of something greater. Let's take the first step, Sarah, he said, an unfamiliar eagerness creeping into his tone. What do you have in mind? Sarah's heart raced again, her moment was here. What would it take to truly commit, not just for herself, but for him and those who needed it most? As she drew in a breath, the future loomed ahead like a vast landscape. Would this be the chance they both needed to transform their lives and inspire others? As Sarah sat across from Mark, her mind raced. This was not just a shift for him, it was a potential turning point in her own narrative. She had always felt relegated to the background, serving others while her dreams lingered in the shadows. But the conversation with Mark stirred something deep within her, urging her to step into the light. Let's brainstorm, she suggested, a spark igniting her determination. What cause resonates with you? What changes have you always wanted to see but felt powerless to execute? Mark's brow furrowed, the challenge weighing heavily on him. I don't know. Charity work. Supporting local businesses. His voice lacked conviction. The desire to change was there, but it was entangled with intimidation. Think bigger, she encouraged, inspired by the idea of collaboration. What if we focused on education? Using your resources to create scholarships for underprivileged students. Empowering others through knowledge could ripple out far beyond anything you've considered. He leaned back, swirling the remaining coffee in his cup, his gaze wandering to the window. The bustling outside reminded him of his privileged existence, the contrast stark against the challenges so many faced. I've always admired the potential of education, Mark confessed with a hint of vulnerability. But the system is broken. I would be wading into a sea of problems. That's the point. Sarah exclaimed, her voice imbued with passion. You're equipped to challenge those norms. Who better to break the mold than someone with influence? You don't have to fix everything overnight, but starting now, taking action can create momentum. As their brainstorming continued, Sarah felt herself transforming. Each suggestion she made became a declaration of her desires, a rejection of the limits she had placed on herself for too long. Something shifted in Mark's demeanor, doubt morphed into curiosity. You really believe in this? More than anything, she replied, the conviction in her voice solidifying their partnership. We can take the first step together. Nothing significant happens without a leap of faith. Suddenly, a moment of clarity washed over Sarah. This wasn't merely about Mark's transformation, it was unlocking her own potential. She had a voice, something that had long been dormant. Let us hold a fundraiser, Sarah proposed, excitement bubbling within her. We can gather local businesses, get people invested in the idea of making education accessible. We might even draw attention from larger philanthropists. Your network could open doors I never dreamed were possible. Mark's face betrayed a flicker of apprehension, but it was quickly replaced by intrigue. You're serious, aren't you? Absolutely, she affirmed, feeling empowered in his presence. This could be our way of stepping into the world, challenging norms, and inspiring others to act. You have the resources, and I've got the passion. Together, it's a potent combination. I like this, he admitted, a genuine smile breaking through his usual facade. What's our first move? The conviction that had built within her surged. We start by mapping out a plan. Begin with a simple outreach to businesses, gauge interest. I'll handle the details, and we can merge our ideas into something tangible. As they spoke, Sarah felt a warmth blossom within her. It was more than mere ambition, it was the feeling of agency, of being recognized not just as someone serving coffee, but as someone capable of creating a movement. This budding partnership with Mark opened a realm of possibilities. But beneath the excitement lay a current of anxiety. Could she balance her everyday life while diving into this ambitious endeavor? And what if Mark's willingness to change began to clash with his intrinsic fears? Would they falter when faced with the inevitable obstacles? Committing to this cause meant confronting the uncertainties lurking in both of them. Sarah closed her eyes momentarily, envisioning the path ahead, a treacherous endeavor, but layered with the promise of unearthing their truest selves. As their conversations deepened, the bell above the diner door chimed once again, punctuating their ambitions with the reality of the world outside. This partnership could reshape them both, but they stood on the precipice of a daunting journey. We're aiming for something monumental, Mark, she said, holding his gaze. Let us not just create change for ourselves, let the world see what we can build together. And as Mark nodded, a new determination surfaced between them, thicker than the air, crackling with potential. Here's to breaking the mold, he said, his voice steady, and in that moment, Sarah realized this was just the beginning, that a new mission awaited. Mark's contemplation of their next steps hung in the air, eliciting both excitement and apprehension. Would this push their boundaries beyond what they ever envisioned, or would they falter when faced with their own fears? The next morning, Sarah awoke with a fresh sense of purpose. The sunlight poured through her window, casting shadows on the walls that danced with potential. She lay there, absorbing the weight of her commitment to the fundraiser alongside Mark. This wasn't just about an event, it was a chance to reshape her identity. She sprang from bed, her heart pounding, contemplating her day ahead, both exciting and terrifying. At the diner, the hum of conversations and the clinking of dishes served as the backdrop to her thoughts. As she poured coffee for a regular patron, her mind was fixed on strategies for outreach. Who would be the best allies? Which local businesses would resonate with their mission? Each task at the diner, from serving breakfast specials to chatting with patrons, began to blur together in the excitement of her new goals. However, a voice in her head lingered. What if this failed? What if she overstepped her boundaries? It was a familiar specter, whispered doubts that had edged into her confidence. Yet today felt different. She would not let her fears dictate her journey. As she cleared the booth, thoughts swirled. She recalled Mark's uncertainty, the vulnerability he had shown. Perhaps he needed more than just a plan, he needed mentorship and encouragement. She decided right then to approach him with a different lens, focusing not only on logistics but also on building his confidence. This revised perspective rejuvenated her. A little fortitude goes a long way, she muttered to herself, wiping the table down with newfound vigor. After her shift, Sarah found herself at the coffee shop where she first met Mark, pacing the floor with an excitement that was impossible to ignore. She leaned over her laptop and began drafting a detailed outreach letter, outlining their vision and mission. Each word surged forward, punching through her self-imposed limitations. She envisioned influential business owners inspired by her words. That evening, she reached out to a few local contacts: a small bookstore owner, a coffee roaster, and a young tech entrepreneur who had recently had success in harnessing local resources. She felt a sense of satisfaction wash over her with every email sent. Later, as she retraced her thoughts from earlier in the day, she remembered her high school debate team. The thrill of discussing complex ideas made her heart race then, just as it did now. Perhaps the skills she honed back then were still within her. She could articulate her vision, persuade, and engage. The realization was like flicking a switch. She had a gift for communication that needed nurturing, longing to be recognized. The next day, she approached Mark with the refined concept. Let us have a meeting. Everyone we contact needs to see our shared enthusiasm. It's contagious, she encouraged, meeting his eyes with fervor. Mark was sitting at that familiar table, his posture still tinged with restraint. What if we don't find anyone willing to support us? He asked. The statement opened a door, inviting the conversation deeper. Then we learn and adapt. We can't let fear of failure paralyze us. Neither of us can afford to shrink back into the shadows, she countered, her voice steady. What we're doing is new, and new things often come with uncertainty. A flicker of determination ignited in Mark's eyes, prompting her to keep pushing. Let us channel that uncertainty into preparation. We've got to make them see the impact this could have if we ignite their passion. They won't resist. They spent hours refining their strategies, and what started as an idea morphed into something tangible. With each new plan, Sarah could feel herself rising, no longer the passive waitress but an active player shaping their fate. But as they mapped out their outreach, a sliver of doubt whispered back into her mind what stood between them and success. Would they handle the inevitable obstacles ahead? Just as their session wrapped up, Sarah received an unexpected text from one of her old college professors, a potential lead on a prominent local philanthropist known for supporting educational initiatives. Can we meet with him? She asked excitedly, her heart racing. Mark's face lit up, the energy palpable. Sounds like we're on the right track, Sarah. Their partnership had begun to solidify into something real, something electrifying. But as Sarah prepared to reach out to the philanthropist, she couldn't shake the feeling that their ambition might soon be tested in ways she could not yet comprehend. The moment for action was here, the sands of time were shifting beneath their feet. Would their transformation spark real change, or would they fall short amid their aspirations? Sarah stared at her phone's screen, the blinking cursor adding to her anxiety. This was a critical juncture. Connecting with the philanthropist could open doors she never even imagined. The thought both thrilled and terrified her. What if this meeting exposed her shortcomings? What if she faltered in front of someone so influential? Taking a deep breath, her fingers danced across the keyboard. "Dear Mr. Thompson, I hope this message finds you well. I would appreciate the opportunity to discuss an initiative that aims to inspire and uplift our community." She crafted each sentence carefully, conscious of the impression she wanted to leave. As she hit send, a sense of finality settled in. She had taken a step toward her aspirations, yet within her excitement lay a familiar undercurrent of doubt. A cascade of what-ifs flooded her mind. What if Mr. Thompson was condescending? What if he deemed her unworthy of his time? But this was about more than her anxieties, it was about believing in a vision larger than herself. These thoughts galvanized her. She reminded herself of Mark, with his cautious optimism, and how her own belief could bolster their budding partnership. The following days were filled with nervous anticipation. Sarah focused on what she could control, finalizing their presentation, ensuring everything was polished and professional. She created visual aids that highlighted their project's goals, which would complement her verbal message. Each detail represented her commitment to the cause, a chance to merge her past with her present. During a coffee break at the diner, she thought about the dichotomy of her life. The diner buzzed with the chaos of morning rush, and yet her mind was elsewhere, envisioning a room filled with donors, all centered around their project. It felt foreign, yet invigorating. She could facilitate change not just for herself, but for her community. "Hey, Sarah. You good?" A coworker interrupted her thoughts. "Yeah, just," she hesitated, searching for the right words. "Thinking about future opportunities." "Don't let them intimidate you," he advised, as he filled cups of coffee. "Just remember, they're people too." His words resonated deep within her. She had allowed fear to cloud her perception, painting successful individuals as untouchable. Releasing that fear could empower not just her aspirations but also how she carried herself. When she received a reply from Mr. Thompson, a request for a meeting, the spark of exhilaration ignited anew, but along with it came a spike of panic. She had said yes, but what was she really committing to? As she paced the diner later that day, her chest tightened with apprehension. She envisioned the potential for missteps, but as quickly as the fear came, she reshaped it into determination. Instead of seeing his wealth as a barrier, she viewed it as an opportunity, a chance to share a vision with someone who had the means to amplify their reach. On the day of the meeting, her heart raced as she walked into the upscale coffee shop, the sense of espresso and pastries mingling with her nerves. She donned her best confidence like a cloak, reminding herself that this was not just an act of seeking support but also of collaboration. This was about mutual benefit, not just taking but giving. When Mr. Thompson arrived, his presence loomed large. Yet, beneath his composed exterior, Sarah detected a flicker of curiosity. Their conversation flowed as she shared their vision, her passion spilling out in dynamic waves. Each sentence was infused with conviction, her earlier doubts dissolving as she articulated her thoughts. But halfway through, the meeting shifted, and Sarah noticed the subtle smirk on Mr. Thompson's face. The flicker of interest was replaced by skepticism. "You do realize that moving from ideas to execution is a monumental leap, don't you?" he questioned, leaning forward slightly, challenging her audacity. In that moment, the stakes felt higher than ever. She took a steadying breath. "Mr. Thompson, I understand the obstacles, but it's the very challenges that inspire resilience and creativity. We're not just asking for support, we're inviting you to be a part of something transformative." She could feel her heart pounding as she held his gaze, fully aware that this was her moment of truth. Would her determination forward or hinder their ambitions? The silence stretched between them, laden with the weight of possibility. Just then, Mr. Thompson's expression shifted as a thoughtful look crossed his face. Perhaps she had delivered a spark of intrigue deep in his guarded demeanor. The air thickened with tension, but within it, the potential for transformation rested precariously. Would she manage to sway him, or was it too late to reclaim the narrative once more? With doubt still dancing in the periphery, Sarah braced herself for an answer that would redefine not only her journey but the path she could forge with Mark. Mr. Thompson leaned back, studying Sarah with a newfound intensity. The firmness in his expression had softened, almost imperceptibly, but she sensed an opening. This moment could pivot her entire future. As she gathered herself to continue speaking, she found her composure woven into the fabric of her argument. Transformative doesn't just refer to what we offer, it's about the impact we create together, she emphasized, leaning slightly forward, willing to breach the chasm of doubt that had separated them moments ago. It acknowledges that we are all part of a larger narrative. Her words seemed to stir something within him. A flicker of respect. Initially, she'd been so terrified of being judged, but now she recognized that she held power in her passion, an urgency that overcame the invisible barrier between wealth and aspiration. Mr. Thompson's fingers pressed together, a gesture she had seen from leaders who knew the weight of decision-making. "Okay, Sarah," he said finally. "Let us pretend for a moment I am interested. What makes you think you can deliver on this vision without the experience or infrastructure that is typically required?" The walls he had placed around his skepticism were formidable but not impenetrable. Sarah felt sharp tendrils of doubt grip her heart again, but she exhaled, channeling all her fear into her words. "What I lack in experience, I compensate with an undeterred belief in our mission. I've witnessed firsthand the void we're aiming to fill and the impact we can create. That authenticity means something. We've built a team and a foundation of local support that can be harnessed, and you'd be pivotal in bridging gaps. Your expertise is crucial." He raised an eyebrow, visibly intrigued. She had struck a chord, and now she leaned into it. "This isn't just about charity, it's verification of a taut network that can shift paradigms. Together, we can sculpt a sustainable model that thrives on innovation rather than simply existing to fulfill donations." Her mind raced forward, imagining the future they could co-create. "Would you be willing to meet our team? There are ideas bubbling within that would benefit from your insight." Sarah dared to establish a collaborative vision, praying he wouldn't dismiss it. The seconds passed, stretching her patience into lace-thin cords of tension. She anticipated everything, his laughter, dismissal, or curiosity that would fade into indifference. Instead, Mr. Thompson's mouth twitched, a hint of a smile breaking through his stoic demeanor. "All right," he said, an unexpected warmth entering his tone. "You've piqued my interest. Let's see if this idea has the merit you believe it does. I'll meet your team next week." Elation coursed through her like fresh energy, but she responded with restraint. "Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I appreciate this chance. I assure you, it will be time well spent." As they wrapped up the meeting, Sarah felt a shift within her. She had stepped beyond her fear and had reshaped a conversation from one of potential dismissal to one of upward possibility. Each word had carried weight, not just in their content but in the way they were delivered, imbued with her journey, her struggles, her resilience. Yet, beneath that triumph lay a flicker of trepidation. She would need to galvanize everyone, leaving behind the imprint of her previous self, which was steeped in self-doubt. This was a commencement of something much larger than she had imagined. As she walked out of the coffee shop, her mind buzzed with ideas. She was no longer just Sarah, the waitress. She had stepped into the role of an architect of change. The meeting had been a catalyst, but it would take preparation, collaboration, and clear strategy to fulfill that potential. Mark's voice came back to her. This was where he would shine, where their mission could thrive. But even as excitement mixed with their potential plans, she hesitated momentarily, recognizing that shadows of her past could resurge. Could she really inspire confidence in her team? Would they rally behind her, now? Determined to illuminate her newfound growth, she planted the seed of an idea in her mind. Perhaps it was time for honesty, both with her team and herself. As she began to strategize for her team meeting, a flick lanced through her, an unsettled feeling. If truths were unveiled, could they withstand such a revelation? Sarah knew she had to face her past burdens before they could stride confidently into the future. The next decision loomed, heavy with the potential for both connection and upheaval. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah sat at her small table, papers strewn about, her mind racing. The weight of the upcoming meeting pressed down on her, urging her to center her thoughts. She was no longer a passive observer in her narrative, but a key player, ready to take charge. Yet the realization brought with it a wave of anxiety. Could she truly command respect from her team? Drawing a deep breath, Sarah forced herself to focus. This wasn't merely a pitch, it was a sharing of vision. How could she cultivate that sense of purpose among her team, ignite their passions, and foster a collaborative spirit? Authenticity through vulnerability, she murmured to herself, the phrase a nascent mantra guiding her thoughts. Determined to translate that inspiration into actionable plans, she grabbed her notepad and began jotting down key points. It struck her then that it was crucial to articulate not just the what of their mission, but the why. Why were they trying to create change? Why did those changes matter? Each why resonated deeply with her, echoing her own struggles and aspirations. As she wrote, memories swelled within her: the empty tables she had waited on, the endless hours that had passed in that cafe, and all the fleeting encounters with strangers who had crossed her path. Those interactions, mundane at the time, were like background music to the symphony of her self-discovery. She'd led her life seeking approval, tiptoeing on societal expectations, but now was different. She had to be honest, not just with herself, but with her team, revealing her doubts to highlight the shared struggle of anyone daring to dream. As she prepared her thoughts, Sarah envisioned the room where they would gather. Would they be receptive? There was Mark, with his inherent skepticism. And then there was Lisa, whose drive often outshone her patience. If she could address their concerns, demonstrate that their voices mattered, she could galvanize the group into a unified force. The next few days were an emotional whirlwind. She reached out to each team member individually, gathering them for informal chats. With every discussion, snippets of their fears emerged, and with them a shared camaraderie developed. They all had a stake in the vision. She was learning about their aspirations, grievances, and most profoundly, their vulnerabilities. As connections deepened, Sarah felt her own confidence swell. She was no longer stepping into the future blithely, she was striding purposefully, equipped not just with grand ideas but with palpable understanding. This was about more than just a venture, this was fostering an environment of trust, honesty, and accountability. However, as their collective preparation progressed, a troubling thought nagged at her. Was she truly capable of maintaining this authenticity in front of Mr. Thompson? Would she break under the weight of his expectations, revealing insecurities that could topple the collaborative spirit they were building? That shadow loomed larger after each meeting, an insidious whisper sowing seeds of doubt. As the team sat together brainstorming strategies, she forced a smile, attempting to quiet her internal critic. Tomorrow is going to be big, she said, trying to rally their spirits. But remember, even if things don't go as planned, we're doing this together. The group nodded, and for a moment, she felt buoyed by the team's energy. But deep down, Sarah knew she was about to face the ultimate test of her resolve. What if her tentative honesty was not enough? What if, at the very moment of unveiling their vision to Mr. Thompson, she faltered? The following day would be pivotal, but first, she needed to confront her own fears. Summoning her determination, she whispered to herself, the truth is transformative. But as the weight of that truth pressed down on her, Sarah feared that revealing herself might expose more than just her vulnerabilities. It could unravel everything. With the meeting drawing closer, she wondered, would transparency and authenticity be her greatest strength, or would it push her team, and her aspirations, to the brink? The moment of revelation loomed just ahead, tinged with both suspense and inevitability. As dawn broke, casting a soft glow through her window, Sarah felt the gravity of the day wash over her. Today was more than a meeting, it was a defining moment. The vulnerability she had embraced in her interactions with the team now felt like a blade, both a weapon and a potential source of harm. She wrestled with the notion of authenticity. Could exposing her fears genuinely resonate with her audience, or would it be perceived as weakness? She lingered over her planned introduction, a few key phrases skimming through her mind like autumn leaves caught in a gentle breeze. Each word could tilt the atmosphere in the room, the stakes heightened with every second that the clock moved closer to the meeting time. What if she inadvertently invited doubt instead of trust? Making her way to the conference room, the adrenaline coursed through her, sparking both excitement and trepidation. As she entered, she glanced at her team. Mark was fidgeting with his pen, Lisa ruffling through her notes with palpable impatience. The energy shifted so suddenly that it made her heart race. Composure became an illusion as she recognized their expectations hanging in the air. The conference table, usually a silent witness to corporate strategy discussions, now felt like a podium where her vulnerabilities were about to be laid bare. "Thank you all for being here," she began, her voice wavering slightly, fighting against the escalating tide of anxiety. "Today, we're not just presenting our ideas to Mr. Thompson. We are sharing a piece of ourselves." The silence that followed felt stretching, each breath weighted with scrutiny. As she unveiled the mission statement they had crafted together, Sarah leaned into raw honesty. "We are here because we care about the changes we want to create, but I want to be clear, I have doubts and fears, just like you do." She noticed Mark's eyebrow raise and Lisa's frown soften, as though they had collectively drawn a breath of relief. For a moment, vulnerability transformed the space into a sanctuary. With every point she covered, each elaboration on their why, she felt a connection knitting stronger knots around her. The team wasn't mere spectators, they became part of a narrative they had never before freely shared. They began voicing their own trepidations. Mark spoke up about budgetary concerns, Lisa shared her impatience with perfectionism. Each concern, an echo of Sarah's own fears, threaded together the fabric of their collective intentions, but as Mr. Thompson walked in, the room shifted once more. His imposing presence was immediate, evoking an atmosphere of tension that prickled at Sarah's skin. She fought the instinct to retreat, he was notorious for quickly dismissing ideas. Yet, the warmth generated by her team bolstered her confidence. "We are presenting not just data," she reminded herself, "but a dream." As Sarah proceeded with the presentation, each slide flickering past sparked ideas and solutions. Mr. Thompson's expression remained inscrutable, scrutinizing as she anticipated. But amid her rolling apprehension, the trust she had built with her team began to shine through, giving her the courage to keep pushing forward. However, when Mr. Thompson finally interjected, the words that tumbled from his lips hung heavier than any previous interaction. "You're passionate, but this seems naive. In reality, how can you expect this to work without considering the risks involved?" Disappointment washed over her, yet an ember of determination ignited within. Sarah had a choice: succumb to defeat or stand firm in her belief. Taking a breath, she squared her shoulders and faced him directly. Naivety can be a catalyst for innovation. If we never challenge the status quo, we risk stagnation. What we lack in resources, we make up for in vision. As the room fell silent again, she realized she had said something powerful, something that transcended mere rhetoric. Mr. Thompson's brow furrowed slightly, his mind clearly racing through unexpected possibilities. For the first time, Sarah saw a flicker of intrigue in his eyes, as if he were forging an undeniable connection with the authenticity her team had presented. But this tentative spark of hope came with a harrowing thought: could she maintain this delicate equilibrium of authenticity in the face of escalating scrutiny? As she processed his reaction, a new question arose: would Mr. Thompson's challenge only be the beginning of a much harder journey ahead? The path to establishing her vision was freshly paved but lined with uncertainties, and with every new challenge, the stakes kept rising. Could she truly inspire others while grappling with her own doubts? As she stepped back from the meeting room, one last thought lingered: the battle for newfound respect had just begun. Days turned into weeks, and as Sarah dove deeper into her role as a catalyst for change, the momentum built around their initiative began to crystallize. The meeting with Mr. Thompson had ignited a sense of purpose she had never anticipated. Each challenge that arose became an opportunity to demonstrate resilience, to prove to herself and her team that genuine perseverance always transcended fear. Surrounded by bated anticipation, Sarah watched as Mark, now engaged and dynamic, shared his insights during team meetings. His once reluctant demeanor had transformed into a driving force, unwavering in their mission to craft scholarships for underprivileged students. Together, they had laid out a framework to address both educational gaps and inspire communal investment in higher learning opportunities. Their slogan, "Empower through Education," began to resonate through the local business community. Sarah, filled with newfound confidence, contacted potential sponsors, rekindling connections that had lapsed in her past. Each phone call echoed the transformation she had undergone. She was no longer just a waitress burdened by the weight of responsibility. She was vowing to elevate her narrative, and now she was becoming the visionary she had only dreamed of being. Weeks later, the first fundraising event materialized. Flanked by Mark and their dedicated team, Sarah felt her heart pound in anticipation as she addressed the audience, a mix of local business owners and community leaders. The venue pulsed with energy, and as spotlights illuminated her determined face, she drew in a deep breath. "Welcome, everyone. Tonight, we gather not just for an event, but to sow the seeds of change," she declared, her voice steady and powerful. The buzz in the room fell away, replaced by eager attention. "We're here to challenge the narrative surrounding education in our community. It's time to turn tables, illuminate stories, and rebuild frameworks to nurture tomorrow's leaders." A round of applause erupted, fueling her confidence. For the first time, she felt a palpable connection with her audience, deep-rooted in shared purposes and collective aspirations. The speeches from fellow team members underscored the mission, revealing personal stories tied to educational experiences. Each narrative, a thread woven into the fabric of their cause, struck a chord, expanding their reach beyond mere fiscal targets. As the night progressed and donations poured in, Sarah felt an unparalleled wave of fulfillment wash over her. It was no longer about surviving, it was about thriving. The culmination of their hard work had been validated, not just through financial contributions, but through the belief that their mission resonated with others. After the event, Sarah reflected on her journey, bridging the gap between who she had been and who she was becoming. She had confronted her insecurities, stepped into her power, and received recognition for her innate abilities to inspire and lead. It was more than just professional success, it was an awakening. The final moment came when Mr. Thompson, who had been present throughout the event, approached Sarah with an undeniable admiration in his expression. "I must say, you have surpassed my expectations," he remarked, his voice warm yet sincere. "This initiative is not just impressive, it holds the promise of genuine change. I want to contribute financially and beyond." In that moment, Sarah felt a surge of gratitude and triumph. This was her act of defiance against her past self, proof that risks taken and vulnerabilities unveiled could yield extraordinary outcomes. They had established a relationship built on authenticity, partnership, and persistence. As Sarah stood amidst the remnants of a successful event, she held steady her newfound confidence, realizing her voice was powerful, her vision was valid, and her role was firmly established. She had claimed her space not only as a suffixed waitress but as an individual with expertise and influence, poised to create resonant change. Tomorrow dawned with endless possibilities, but tonight marked the epitome of her journey so far. The once anxious waitress transformed into a community advocate, ready to tackle challenges head-on, ensuring that the narrative of her life would evolve from servitude to stewardship. Each step towards her professional and spiritual growth resonated with success. She had proven to herself, and to those around her, that courage and determination could ignite transformations, not just in one life, but in countless others. This was just the beginning. Now is the moment to show your support. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.